need to recognize that not only do you need your congressman to speak up for you and stand up for you and make the right decisions when it can be harmful to their re-election chances, you also need to recognize this in your president. One of the things we face in our country's history is that our national policies, our real priorities, have been thrown under the bus in favor of foreign policies which many presidents can direct and control. But it's too often at the expense of our national and domestic policy. I'll give you a real world example. In the 60s, Lyndon Johnson started the war on poverty. And it was successful. And you know it was successful. It was making many congressmen in the South mad, many senators and many legislative aides, and they fought the president left and right. However, in the name of saving his legacy as a president, Lyndon B. Johnson got us into the Vietnam War. And the first thing he sacrificed to keep his funding for the Vietnam War was the war on poverty, which was so successful. And as your congressman, we have to keep the big picture in mind that too often our foreign policy is used as a means to divert attention away from pressing domestic problems that they don't want to deal with because there's no easy answer and they can't take the credit for all of it. And regarding, having 2 PhDs, we have the wealthiest, most accomplished, most highly educated, and realistically the most ineffective Congress in modern political history. We have over $9 trillion in debt. We have Democratic congressmen who are voting for the same bills that Republicans are, as long as the lobbyists give them the money. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm against preemptive war. I think one of the things we need to recognize is that preemptive war is a symptom of the problems we have in our Congress and the lack of leadership therein. And I'll explain. What I'm saying is the reason so many Democrats voted for the Iraq War in the first place, because if your axis of evil is Iraq, Iran, and North Korea, the 5th largest army in the world with thousands of pieces of artillery aimed at 37,000 American troops in South Korea, somehow they became less of a threat than Iraq, whom we had under no-fly zone. Well, the problem we had specifically with Democrats, because we need to hold our own accountable, is that they need to be leaders. Our congressmen, so many voted for the war because they were scared to be called cowards or weak or peaceniks by the Republicans. Why don't they have their own personal strength to say that they actually have principles and convictions, and that was reflected in the vote of our incumbents. So if you're like me, you will find that I will vote on the principles of the constituents and not of my contributors. Things. First, I too would repeal the biggest tool for the biggest tool being the Patriot Act. Our civil liberties are at risk. I would also again, agree and get rid of the Military Commissions Act. But another thing I would do is also work to close all of the congressional ethics loopholes that allow this war to keep going on to the same rate it's going. In fact, they're spending more money in annual appropriations than they thought they would be spending the entire war. Again, they make generals retire who said we need enough troops to do this right. They said, well, that's not how we want to do it. Our congressmen are unable or unwilling to make the right decision. So the reason I said we need to close these congressional ethics loopholes is maybe if they're not serving those masters, they can start to serve us and make appropriate votes. Thank you. It goes without saying that I'm against torture. In terms of where it originated in our government, I'll use our own president's hypocrisy against them. Look what Jesus did. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't do waterboarding. We have so many people in our government claiming the highest moral authority, the highest character. They don't realize the moral hazard they're creating around the world, because we do set the example, good or bad, and this is an extremely bad example. With regards to Guantanamo Bay, it does need to be closed. We could have commission trials. We did after World War II, except we held them in the open for everyone to see, and that's just something that this government is against, is having anything be transparent. And again, torture is a result of the lack of transparency in our government and the lack of congressional oversight that they get in their operations. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm optimistic about the future that we can have for this country. I feel that I can continue to build on the legacy and foundation that many people here with gray hair who have worked all their lives to build. It's eroding. It's eroding because we have a lack of leadership. I've said that our incumbent and Ms. Evans are two sides of the same coin, sitting at the table of money on one hand and power on the other. We need to start electing people who are like you and I, working people. I'm working during this campaign. I'm not an elected official, I'm not a wealthy businessman, and I'm not a lawyer. By training, I'm an engineer, and by profession, I'm a consultant to water utilities. We need to start bringing in people who have skills other than the ability to dodge questions. and not answer questions effectively. I have a vision and a plan for the 4th District. I am technically, fiscally, politically, and culturally knowledgeable. One of the reasons amid the records of disasters, they came in there knowing nothing and offended everybody as quickly as possible. They didn't even do research.